Okay, we're gonna just go over a few things with the Blum Minipress. First thing I want to go over is we're usually doing two different kinds of hinges on this. The compact hinges, these are the compacts, and then the regular hinges have the big arm. And so there's two settings: the drill distance in the board. On the long ones, it's about a 1/4 inch, and then on these, I think it's around an 1/8. But there's two settings, and if you just loosen this up here, it'll click between the two. See that? So the one up here is for the compact, pull all the way forward. I'll drill one here. Got to turn that on to drill. See, that one's closer. That's for these compacts. And I'm going to move it back. And back there will be this other hole for the regular hinge. Now normally, when we're drilling holes in doors, we're using these second stops here. We're going against those. Either that one or that one. It puts the holes, the hinge about 4 inches in. Occasionally, if you have a small door, say you had a little door that was only this big, you don't want them in that far, or else they'll be right next to each other in the middle of it. Then you would use these. And that would that will work on a smaller door. I only use those stops on a real small door. And occasionally, when you're coming over here to drill holes, occasionally you gotta check the plans, because on some jobs they put an apron under the sink and the door covers it all. And you can't put a hinge where an apron is under a sink, so you'd have to move it down to a different position. And sometimes on some cabinets there might be fixed shelves in it, and you got to check where those are in the hinge replacement, because you don't want to put a hinge in where there's a fixed shelf and you won't be able to mount the plate. So it's always good to look at the plans and know what you're doing on hinge placement before you start drilling. Now there's one other. When we do those pocket doors, there's another size. This is a 35 millimeter bit, but there's another bit that comes with this. Where do you put it, David?
In the same place I found it, believe me.
Oh, maybe it's in here.
Yeah. Oh, I put it inside the container that it fit in, yeah.
Yeah, this is the 40 millimeter bit. Now, if we put this in, usually when they send the pocket doors, they'll send instructions on how far from the edge that this is bored. On our last job, it was 3/8. And so if you use this to drill those holes, you're going to have to change all this setup. And you're going to have to move this fence back. There's little.
You don't have to, avoid too much like that.
Yeah, I'm just saying. That it can be done. You have
Yeah,
to
you can show.
loosen these up and
Move it forward or
the
backward.
index is up, yeah, and move it wherever you want. But there's a spot where it clicks in just for these hinges. This machine was made to do these hinges. So I'm gonna put it back there. And if you move this fence very far, there's also clamps on the ends that are holding it in place. So you want to loosen those up if you're moving it back before, else you're going to have to be bowing it All right. I'm just showing you that that's, might be a possibility. You might need to do that. It's very rare that we have those pocket doors, but. Another thing I want to talk about are the bits. When we're going into when we have MDF doors, we press the hinges in, and so we use these I think they're quarter-inch, these quarter-inch bits, and the hinges have those.
She isn't ordering them with those on them anymore?
Yeah,
Sometimes,
yeah. If
okay.
they don't have them on, we have
gotta put
them
them.
here to put them in.
And when you do, just because I do this, other people just hammer them in, those little
I don't hammer
things.
them. I use this to
I
press
use the
them in.
press, and I always put this on top of them, and
Yeah.
then press it down, because this
Yeah.
gets it to seat nice and flat. Gives it a little
So is
extra
that the
cushion.
press he's got? right
Yeah.
there?
See. Yeah.
swing that thing.
You swing that down.
Oh, I didn't put that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and if they're on a hinge, you can just put the whole hinge in there, and it presses it down. Or else, if you have those, I put them on there, and I just put it and press it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how that works. So in MDF doors, screws don't hold into MDF very well. That's why we use these. But we had trouble pressing into solid wood because it was splitting the wood open on us. So we changed the bits out for solid wood. We use the little drill bits. So you would just change these out. It's easy to change these out. We just put these in here, and then
So basically, they're drilling a pilot hole at this point?
yeah, it's drilling a little pilot hole for the screw. So get one of these that doesn't have right. You can just screw it in. So that's what you do. So solid wood, we use the small drill bits for pre-drilling for the holes, and then in MDF doors, we're using the larger bits. Put those up there, and goes up there. We have a spare bit here.
Oh, it's a magnet too.
Yep. Here, yeah, over there.
What is the size of the larger boring bit that's on there now? Is that 35?
That's the 35 millimeter, yeah. Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else we need to go over.
Talk about seating those bits correctly, because remember last week when they were sitting a little low, they go through.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
when you're doing this, make sure you're down ½ inch. Let me show you something on that. There's actually a adjusting screw on the end of this bit that can control the depth somewhat with. And sometimes that vibrates down, and when you put this in, it may not be drilling deep enough.
Too deep.
Yeah, or too deep. So right now it's about there. And, so always check it, because I know people have drilled these holes before and they're going to put the doors on and find out the hinges don't go all the way in because we didn't drill far enough. So that's one of the checks you make when you're doing this, is check and make sure it's drilling down ½ inch. And if it isn't, I just screw this down a little bit, screw that screw out a little bit, so it is drilling at ½ inch. And I do believe that these, I think these also have, these also have the adjusters in them. But those are usually, these are drilled pretty deep. Those are usually in all the way. Yeah, make sure these things are all the way up. Cause these bits are drilling the hair deep. I think they're allowing you a little bit of sharpening, space there. They could be sharpened a number of times and still be able to use them, you know?
So before you press anything, I would always do a test piece. Some cheese,
Oh,
chop
yeah.
plywood and just use.
Yeah, make sure you're drilling right.
And the
Got
other,
the right depth and everything. Yeah.
and sometimes we have a long door, so you have 3 or 4 hinges, right? So you have to mark it, and if you have to mark 1, 1, 2, 3, I usually go from one side 12 inches and then go from the other side, make sure that it's the center. Because if you cut it wrong, the door is garbage, and it's expensive. So you have to, I always double measure both sides, that way I know I'm right.
Yeah.
But so think before you drill holes in there. Look at the plans also.
These little things here are actually, these little orange blocks here actually stop it when it hits the wood. And, that brings you to the right depth.
Right.
But these are adjusted, these are your stops.